using the very vintage wheel. It's a jumbo wheel, and I am going to ink it up with the Versamark ink first. And what that'll do is once I put the classic ink color, which I'm using soft suede, the Versamark ink will be on the top when you roll it onto the paper, and the soft suede would be on the bottom. Now I've got my wheel rolled, inked well with the Versamark ink, and you're just going to roll it over. Try to get this inked up very well. You don't want to do this often because you don't want the Versamark ink on your pads. So I don't do this very often. I'm using watercolor paper because I'm going to do a watercolor technique for this blog post for VC Rocks. We're having a boycott on May 14th and 15th, I believe it is. So that's why I'm doing this one on the watercolor paper, because I want to color in some of those designs on this wheel. So you just take your wheel, start off of the paper, roll across, and stop off. Now I didn't get that completely straight, but that's okay because I'm cutting this strip out to put on my card. Next, you'll just take your, I have a powder pal, and I'm going to use clear powder. I'll sprinkle it over it. And let's see, and then just, you know, spread your powder over. Now you could take the embossing buddy and wipe over your paper if you don't want stray marks of the powder, but since I'm going to be coloring this and just using that section, I don't think it's going to matter. I went ahead and heat embossed this. It's really neat because you can use any color that you have, and like I said, I wouldn't do this often because you don't want to mess up the ink in your ink pad. The Versamark ink is a resist ink, so you wouldn't want to do this often, but just every once in a while I'll do this with different classic colors if you don't have the craft ink. The craft ink will hold the powder down long enough for you to heat emboss it. I've watercolored my strip. I had heat embossed it with the soft suede, and also when I watercolored it, I used a little bit of Certainly Celery around the edge, and then I sponged on a little tiny bit of soft suede around there. And the way I watercolor is I use an old plastic lid, just recycle some lid. This is from a cottage cheese container. I put like a drop or two of re-inker on there. And then I just pick it up with my brush, make sure my brush is wet. And I always have like a paper towel nearby so I can, you know, dab it on that. I like the way this brush is designed because you can put your cap right on the end. To make these flowers, I used the rock and roll method. I needed 1 large and 2 of the small. And the stamp set is Vintage Vogue. You take and ink up your stamp for the rock and roll method with the lightest color ink that you have. In this case, I'm using Regal Rose and Perfect Plum. Now, I stamped off one time just to get the Regal Rose not to be so bright. I'm going to take my darker color ink, and I'm just going to run, and I hope you can see how this works. You just run it around the edges like that. I'm not stamping, or I'm not pressing straight down. I'm just rolling it around the edges of the stamp, and you may get a little ink on your block or something. Oops, sorry. I'll try to show you this, how it works. And just roll, rock and roll, that's the name of it. And if you can see that, there is 2 colors of ink on there now. And you just stamp as normal. Sometimes I hold just a little bit longer on my stamps. And there you go. And that's a great way to have 2 tones on your stamp set. Just remember to load it with the light color first, and then to roll the edges on the darker color second. Here's one of the flowers that I finished, and you can see it has a little dimension to it. The petals are embossed with a stylus, and I want to show you quickly how to do that. I'm going to start on the larger one first. Use the larger end of your stylus, and just start in circular motion. Start out here kind of wide, or you don't even have to be wide. Just start rolling in towards the center, but make sure you're doing circular motions. It works better that way. So we'll just do a show you a couple of these, and you can see how it curves. But if you start at the end and then go towards the middle or center of the flower, that will definitely make it curl in or curl up. And if you notice, I've got it face down, so that way my petals are curling a certain way. And sometimes they curl better than others. I don't know what it is. I guess it's the pressure you put on or however you do them, but I just think this adds a lot of dimension, and I like the way it looks older. So I'm going to flip it over. To do this, I'm using the end of my paper piercer, and I'm just going to press down in the center. So that gives me a little bit of lift, and I just think that looks really cute. And then I added a pearl in the center. Same thing with the smaller one, only this one I just used the stylus, just like I did the other one. I'm trying to hurry here. Let's curl it up towards the center. And I use the stylus to press down the center of this one. And you don't have to do a lot, but just a little. And then we'll put them on top of each other. I'll glue them down, and I'll put a pearl in the center. Quick tip for adhering the basic pearls onto your cards. I use the tips of my scissors. I have them slightly opened. Pick it up off of the backing and place it on my project where I want it. Slip my finger out, and there you go. Just press down, make sure that pearl is adhered, and that's a quick tip to do that. The pieces I used on this project were watercolor paper 2" by 4 1/4 inch. The mat for that one is 2 5/8 by 4 1/4 inches soft suede. And I punched one long edge with the scallop trim border punch. The circle is 1 3/4 inch punch. And I put the larger flower on top of that, and it is Regal Rose sponged in soft suede. And then you needed 3 of the small flowers and 1 of the large. And I'm going to show you how to get this shape from the Dolly triple layer punch that's in our summer mini in a future video. Here's the finished card. Thanks for watching my video, and I hope you have a great day.